Coming up on today's podcast.
The white paper.
We promised we'd discuss that, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
What's
I
going
never wanted to film him having a meltdown. Why is it that EHCP process has to be so long-winded and difficult? And I really don't want to jump out of a plane.
If it was 24,999.99,
yeah, I'll be happy.
I'm putting in the penny.
This is the Peak Podcast. Come tell your story. Join the adventure. Find what you seek. Step by step, reach your peak potential.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Peak Podcast. I'm Carl.
And I'm Marco.
Hi, Marco.
Hi, Carl. How's it going? Podcast 2, The Return.
Yes, yeah. This episode is quite aptly named The Journey, because I think we're going to be talking about the process of moving from the MyPlan to MyPlan Plus to EHCP and so on and so forth. We're also going to be touching on the white paper this episode as well, so stick around for that. Marco, what has been going on since the last podcast? What's happened in the life of Marco since we've been
in the life of Marco, in the life of Peak as well? So we since we last recorded our podcast, we have continued to grow as a charity. We've had more people want to join the charity and support our mission to create a more inclusive and society with neurodivergent and neurotypical members all working together for the benefit of our children's futures. What's been going on? So we had last time we recorded this, we was just off the back of another community session we've just done. I'm going to go backwards. We've just done a community session today, and we had lots of new parents join us today. That was pretty cool, wasn't it, Carl?
Yeah, it was really, really nice to see some new faces there and hear some. Well, not nice to hear that they're having difficulties, but nice to hear things that we can help with as Peak.
Absolutely. And what the way we started this session is, and actually to our listeners today, is something that's a really important message we started our session off this week was think of your favorite thing about your child and taking that positive away. Because even though there's those dark days and those challenges that we've discussed, I think we might have mentioned it on the last podcast, those small wins are really powerful and it's really important to take those. So that was a really nice message. We met a lot of new people. We answered a lot of questions. We're gonna raise some of those questions on the podcast. But yeah, that was a really successful session. So we had people come to that, and I'm working backwards. We've just come back from the half terms. Obviously, the big one is the news of the government projected reforms and the white paper and such, which we'll talk about shortly. So we've been supporting around the anxiety and concerns that people have around that. We've had our family support consultants have had some great wins. We've had some tribunal wins. Our frontline team have been doing great work supporting schools understanding and learning and development, local authority professionals, getting us to be more efficient and proactive. And most importantly, the children, the wins with children getting EHCPs, getting the right SEND schools, parents, feeling like they're heard when we're in a meeting as well, feeling empowered, which is obviously in our mantra. And then what else have we been doing? We've been doing some events. We went to some schools. We were present there. So it's just that continuousness of we're providing advisory, we're providing advocacy, and we're doing a lot of practical initiatives, visiting people. I'll probably think of like something later that we did that just popped in my head. Yeah. It's like, and we did this as well.
Yeah, this major thing which I just forgot to mention about. I mean, it's interesting you said about celebrating the favorite thing about your child, because it was there was only a few people in front of me before I started speaking, and by the time that they said their things, they only said like a couple of things. I'd completely forgot to say that about my child. I was like, and then as everyone else was going around, it's like, why did I forget? So I love my boy. Why did I forget? It's like, but I did say about one of the big things which happened this week, and it's infinitesimally small to most, but to us it's massive.
Yeah.
And it was when you came round yesterday, and my boy Alexander actually sat in the lounge for about an hour talking to his granddad, and it was just massive, because normally
Big win.
Yeah, he goes upstairs and he hides, and especially when most family members come around, he really, really struggles with that. So to see him just chatting away to his granddad, it was absolutely massive. So that was kind of stuck in my head, and then anything else just went.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but that's really important. I think we can get so engrossed in the challenges and the difficulties, and that's part of our everyday life. We're navigating circumstances all the time to help our children, but how much time do we take out to really soak up the good moments? And seeing Alexander speaking, I was really privileged to be in the presence of seeing Alexander, who I've known for quite some time now, speak. And I don't know if we have to edit that because I've just said his name or anything.
No, it'd be fine.
It'll be fine.
It's
Okay.
absolutely fine. You
All
know
right,
what?
cool.
This is the rough cut. So
This is the rough cut. Okay. So yeah, it's and I shared a story with about my boy Max, who for me, one of the greatest things about him is his inability to just the next day start fresh and not hold a grudge. And if there's something that's bothered him that day, he will start fresh the next day. And I think that's quite like a powerful skill to have, because how many of us drag on, whether we're neurodivergent or not, the trauma of a negative experience, and at least that's one thing that he has developed the ability to start fresh every day and not hold grudges, because sometimes when we're going to have to work with people and such, we're going to have difficult days and difficult circumstances, and you don't want to hold on to any of that emotional
So he
negativity.
doesn't have any apprehensions about a certain activity or anything like that based on.
Well, he has apprehensions and he has anxieties, and yeah, there have been times where if it's a routine, if like, let's say a person was continuously, every time he encountered that person, they were always negative with them, or they always treated him badly, over time you're naturally going to develop this person isn't very nice, I don't want to associate with them. But he, if he has a disagreement with his siblings, like the next day he's like, "Yo, we're cool, we're family," and that's quite a nice thing, because sometimes that can carry on. So I thought that was a powerful strength to share, and something I love about my boy is that he has that skill to not carry hatred to others. It's quite a nice thing I want to share.
I'm glad you shared it. It is really, really nice to hear.
And it wasn't just me or you. It was like, hearing stories from like a parent who, for the first time ever, they got their child into the setting without that challenge. And I know you know about this.
Oh God, yeah.
Of transitioning into, and that anxiety build up. And it's just, that's such a powerful moment for a parent and a child not have to go through that experience when you're going through it day in and day out. And they had that one day that they went in and everything was okay. Almost like a shock to the system, isn't it?
Yeah, especially the transitioning after being away for like a school break, and that transition of then going from not being at school to then having to go back into to school, or necessarily any other setting. The transitional thing it's been massive, a massive experience on us. But to hear someone else sort of going through that and like having those small victories, it's amazing. And it's really nice to see that they're not they're trying new things, and they're persevering with strategies to get them in. So it's really, really nice to see.
One of the conversations actually I wanted to share with you is, I think this is when, I think you may have been in the room at the time when we were discussing this with the others, but there was a conversation around why can't the professionals that we work with, why can't they just acknowledge and accept the parent's perspective as valid, because we know our children so well? Why is there this continuous pushback? And why should professionals like Peak have to be in the room, advocate for children? And one of the answers that we gave is that the difficulty is, we are all, as parents, emotionally connected to our children, and it's wrong how professionals might misinterpret that and use that personal connection to our children as a reason why we're not being perhaps completely objective. And I disagree with that because I think we know our children best, and we are only asking for support and for help. And why should a third party professional or independent have to come in and advocate for that? And it's something that I would like to see improve. I would like to
Mm.
see more schools and more professionals take on face value what the parent is saying, especially if they're being reasonable with their requests.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's something which hits very close to home with me. I'm assuming that it hits home with every parent of a neurodivergent child or a child with special educational needs. They are the people that know their child best. So it it seems it seems otherworldly to me that other people's opinions of your children matter more than the parents.
Mm. I think the focus becomes on resources, though, doesn't it? Because one of the things that when we're asking professional services for support with our children, they obviously have their resources and they need to manage their resources. And so I suppose the justification that they give is that they need to um, effectively manage their resources, which is common rejection criteria, which is what we hear a lot. Is like, oh, we don't
Yeah.
have the efficient
I
resources.
mean, we
But that's
touched
not an
on
excuse.
no, we touched on this one. We touched on this last time because you said, if you don't have the resources, well, what are you doing to get the resources? And
Yeah.
if you don't have the funding, what are you doing to get?
That's their
acquire
problem.
it?
That's their like
Yeah.
that's if you don't have the resources and you're trying to manage the budgets and way effectively and such. And we do get that there's criteria, but even if your criteria is based on policy or procedure that's based on legislation, and even down to the legislation, it clearly states about what is best for the child.
Yeah.
And who knows what's best for the child more than the parent who brought the child into this world that wants what's best? No one wants more or is going to fight harder than a parent for their child. So they're going to do what they think is best for their child. So I think this is why it's so important. And I think this is why when I go to a lot of tribunals, when judges are speaking to families and such, and I listen to the parent sharing their personal account with the judge, I think that's quite a powerful thing that the decision maker
Mm.
is hearing it from the person whose opinion or whose perspective is the most valid because they are the parent of the child. So I'd like to see more of that. And
Yeah.
I know we're going to talk about the Senate reforms and such, but I think taking on face value, if they're reasonable requirements, if we're not making unreasonable requests, and if we do need to evidence why our child needs something, we work with parents all the time, Carl. We see that they are willing to go and get the evidence, but what they need is they need the professional services to support them on the journey. I'm spending too much time, and my team is spending too much time recently doing the job of professionals. Since when did parents have to be experts in documentations and EHCPs? The people that process these applications should be advising, should be supporting
Mm.
these people, not making them run through hurdles and not having them to parents having to check policies and making sure that they're in line with legislations.
It's a minefield.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going through tribunal at the moment and working on the working document. I've had a chat with you about this, and we've gone through it, and it's needlessly complex. And there's no there isn't an easy way to do it. Essentially, because we've been asked to sort of fill in a section that we're not supposed to be able to fill in, and that is supposed to be filled in by professionals who work with my son. And then it's like, okay, well, why are we being asked to fill in this section which we're not supposed to fill in, but then have to try and then evidence everything from reports which we haven't got? And yeah, it's convoluted and so complex. And then they're coming back as, oh, you haven't done it right. It's like, well, this isn't my job.
Yeah.
So it's not like I've got hours and hours to spare to spend doing all these reports.
You're taking care of the things that you need to take care of when they're not here. You're providing for your children. You're working to keep a roof over their head, food on the table.
Yeah.
To support any extracurriculars that are outside school, to also give a quality of life to these young children so that they then grow up and have healthy family relationships, not seeing stressed out parents who don't have time to play with their children. I mean, I think back to the times where I was working and trying to support my child, and my son wanted to maybe do an activity with me, and I was busy working on his EHCP, and that's not That shouldn't be the case. It should be the case that these professionals are supporting you so that you have that time with your children because they've been at school all day, not, working
Mm.
late nights and your weekends, and then that parent is facing burnout. And how effective is that parent then to support their child? They're only going to request more support from the services and resources from the state because they're burned out because they're putting more and more on parents.
Yeah.
And and i and i we as an organization, we see it from all sides. We work with schools, we work with local authorities, we know everyone's stretched, but there needs to be, I did a video on this recently, there needs to be more collaboration, there needs to be more understanding, and there needs to be the willing of all parties when they're working for the children, that are we all doing everything we can?
Mm.
If that answer is yes, fine, okay, it takes a little longer. If that answer is no, even an inkling, then tomorrow morning you're waking up and you're doing that one thing more. You're spending that 10 minutes more, and that could be to the professional, to the parent, whoever it is, because it's important. But yeah, we shouldn't have so many
It can
parents burned
definitely,
out.
yeah, it can definitely feel like you're working against these outside people to get the support that is needed. It's like, well, it feels a lot like stall tactics.
It's getting more
it's
like
like
that.
it's like, okay, so right, to change one thing on, I don't know, let's take for example the meeting we had with the school just before Christmas. So just after New Year.
The review.
We were informed that we had to make that we had to do that meeting, which we had to wait for that meeting, or to change the one thing on my son's EHCP from SEMH to he now has a diagnosis of autism. And then we weren't allowed to change anything else on that. And then it's all like, okay, but because of this, other things now need to change. And it's just dragging on and on and on. And a lot of families, would have to go through these things for years. And like we've gone through it for years, and we will likely keep fighting for years. But it's very there's a lot of pressure on it because okay, he needs support now, and like this is not just support for now, it's support for their futures. Can we get the ball rolling? Because all these stall tactics, all it's doing is taking away from his education.
Well, a child wakes up in the morning. A child's got the right to wake up in the morning, to get dressed and go and engage in developmental opportunities that they build into adulthood. And for most children, that's in school. For other children, they might have unique circumstances that have external agencies work with them. But the child wakes up in the morning and they have the right to get dressed, have their breakfast, be in that nice supported family environment, and then go into that developmental opportunity. But when they're engaging in that developmental opportunity, they want to feel safe. They want to feel happy. They want to feel content. Now, we know that, with children, they don't always want to do everything that they're told. They have their interests, and children are very bright. They know that if you want me to engage in something that is outside my value of interest, then you have to give me a logical reason why. Why are you teaching me maths? Why are you teaching me English? Why are you teaching me geography and science? If we're expected children to engage in these academic settings, it's as simple as explaining to them the value. My son, who didn't, I think I mentioned this on the last podcast, he didn't understand, he didn't like science. Once he realized that science was related to building robots, an interest he had, he was always in his science lessons.
Yeah.
And he was engaging a lot more. So it doesn't take much for these settings to engage our children and explain to them the value of the subjects that they're teaching. And if there are struggles, if a child has like hypermobility, or if they have sort of strains, there are tools and apparatuses that they could be using to not be in physical pain, to engage in their activities. So we need to really review. We in the community session today, I heard conversation around a PE lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you remember that one?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and the school saying, well, that child just needs to do PE. They need to do PE. And the challenge that child was having is the transition of changing from uniform into the PE kit, and the uncomfortable nature of changing in the dressing rooms and such. And they were like, well, they've just got to get on with it. They've just got to get on with it.
They can't.
They can't just do what you want them to do, because you've got to explain, first of all, the value and the reasons of the engagement of the activity, what they're doing, but also what's so wrong with making reasonable adjustments, and also telling the parents they've got to do this. Instead of that, you should say to the parents, how can we make this work?
Exactly.
What do you think we can do to help that child get that opportunity?
Because that child's got a MyPlan.
Yeah.
I remember from the conversation.
Well, should we get into it? Should we talk about the graduated pathway? Should we talk about the process?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Should we start from the beginning? I mean, like.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's talk about it. Okay, your child. If you believe that your child has neurodivergent needs that need support, then what can you do about it? And the first step is, as a parent, start looking at characteristics, behaviors, things they say and do. And if you have a little book by your side, or you're making notes on your phone, starting to keep an account of the behaviors that you're noticing, or that family members start noticing, because that's really important from early years from parents, that we start noticing behavior habits. Speech delays are a common one and such. But then once you've got that documentation, and we would say that if you need some tips on how to do that, look at the key areas of need, which normally there's the 5. Do you remember all 5 of them? Communication and interaction.
If the microphone wasn't on, the camera was on. Yes,
so
but
jump
the fact
in,
that they're on,
in
my
there.
brain's disappeared.
Jump in if I miss one, Carl. Right? Got
Yep.
Communication and interaction.
Yep.
Okay. Cognition and learning. What do these titles mean? We'll break them down.
Yeah. SEMH.
SEMH is one of them. Yeah. Social, emotional, mental health.
Yep.
There you go. Sensory needs.
Yes.
Self-care and independence. Now, we like to break down SEMH a little bit more. I feel that social should have more of a separate. If you're documenting, social should have its own bracket. So we use 6. But if you want to use SEMH as all in one, because you've got the social side and you've got the emotional health side.
Yeah, I mean, you can dive into. In all fairness, you could do a deep dive into each one of these and break them down quite a lot, but in the to keep it sort of relatable to the MyPlans and the EHCPs, because it's all like done in just those sort of 5-headed sections, probably good to just keep it all together.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you talk about communication interaction, okay, well, what are we talking about here? Well, let's start with something as obvious as speech. If a child is communicating their needs clearly or not, and if they are able to interact with other individuals through that and communicate with them, so that, I understand you and you understand me, or are there challenges there? And if there are challenges, parents writing down what they think those challenges are.
Even if they're subtle.
Even if they're subtle, yeah.
And even if they're only apparent at home or in certain situations, make notes of it, because masking is quite a common thing. It's like, you'll get pushback, oh, we don't see these behaviors here, and then I see the opposite at home. So it's good to document, also where these behaviors are happening and how they're happening.
Good point. Where they're happening. Yeah, absolutely. Like, because they might communicate at home, but they're not communicating at school. And equally, in so communication, you look at pitch, pacing, and volume. Some children will speak quite slowly, quite lowly.
Sorry, I keep fidgeting.
Yeah, some children will speak faster than others. So all of these subtle things are worth documenting. If you need help, we've got templates and we've got questions, so you can contact the charity about that. That's communication interaction. We're only going to touch on these because we spend all day talking about the areas of need. Cognition and learning. The most common thing with cognition and learning is when you're looking at milestones in development with your child, are they operating at or above or below? Now, it's worth documenting if you have a child who is incredibly academic, because what they're doing is they're using a lot of processing power. They might be highly intelligent, but at what cost? And so it's worth documenting their level of academic development and such. You can use school assessments to help you with that as well. But if they have an interest in numbers I once knew a child a long time ago who could, by the time he was 3 or 4, could count to 100 easily. So all of these behaviors are worth documenting to help others make them aware. But how do they learn? Do they require more processing time? When you give an instruction, you go back to communication, how long does it take for your child to comprehend what you've said and then comply with that request?
Yeah, that can be a tricky one to notice. If your processing time is different from theirs, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna ask you these 4 questions like in the space of 30 seconds, and they're not responding to any of them, so they require that longer processing time. And it can be equally as challenging to learn how to pace your questions and wait for that processing time. And like we said, you mentioned earlier, it might not be that they're able to answer then, and then you reinforce that. You don't have to answer now, come back to me later, and if they do forget, you can even remind them later on. So
levels of focus are a big one, aren't they, as well? How long can any of our children focus on any subject? And there might be some things that they focus on for longer. These are really things to document, to record. Do they hyperfixate on certain things? Do they struggle to focus or maintain? Or do you tell your child something and 5 minutes later they've forgotten about it? Some of them have great memories in their value structure, but then will not retain a person that maybe worked with them for years because they're no longer part of their life. So we have to look at anything that you're noticing around their cognitive, their learning development, whether it's high or low in your opinion. It's always worth documenting.
Nothing's ever going to be consistently high.
It can't be.
Or consistently low. There's going to be, they have a certain interest in this. They have a strong aversion to this. So, it's good to build that sort of picture of them. Like, for example, my son, absolutely fantastic on computers, coding, 3D modeling, anything like that, games development. He will hyper focus on, and he will do it for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. You try and sit down with him with a book and we're going to do some maths. No chance. Absolutely no chance. There are ways and means of implementing certain mathematical practices. So what we try and do is focus on doing maths in a coding sense, because any games developer will tell you need to know maths, especially sort of like algebra and things like that. So that's the way you have to sort of twist the learning so it fits their special interest.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can do that in a variety of adaptive ways. My wife, when our son, who one of his neurodivergent challenges is dyslexia, and he was, when he was reading words, he found that quite difficult, but also with his ADHD and with his autism found it difficult to focus. My wife used his interest at the time, Pokemon, and would put words in a Charizard or a Pikachu and such, because what he was doing, he was visually focusing on the image of the character, and the word was embedded within the character, and she made all these cards and laminated them.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was such a...
So
we still have them.
So you have like the Pokemon card, but like...
Yeah, but like she cut out like a big picture of the dragon of the Charizard, and then but she put the
like
word...
a coloured overlay, and then the...
Yeah.
That's
and it wouldn't
good.
just be like Charizard. She would use like maybe the word hello or something, so that he would use different words. But the connection visually was around the value structure and then the word. She's incredibly creative.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was great. And she recently, with our youngest, she made a comic using, once again, the AI tools that are helping us out now. But made a comic of a cartoon comic, and I think it was like of The Simpsons or something, using that as a, but it was us as characters.
Yeah.
I think you've got one of these pictures in your... Have you got a picture of, or something? I know I've got a picture.
You've sent me some AI images of you, so it might be one of
yeah.
you sent me.
I know that sounds a bit dodgy. I'm sending Amy,
but not those kind of images, okay?
No, but she made this comic. I've digressed. I apologize to all our listeners.
No, tangents are amazing. Let's keep going with it.
So yeah, she made this great comic, and it helped engage him in the story, because with comics they have shorter speech bubbles. They're not a lot of text, so it helped maintain the focus because you're going from image to image with a shorter context of information. But anyway, this is all around, we're having a conversation around cognition and learning as the second of the 5 key areas of needs that you want to start documenting as a parent. Now, the third one I'd like to talk about is sensory needs. So we've all got those 5 senses, sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell. Now, think of your child and think of when you're observing them, are you seeing any kind of sensitivities to any of those areas? Or are you kind of seeing any hyper-intensities, desires towards particular senses? Again, for me, for my son, he had a lot of textile. There's things he's had since he was a child that he likes to hold on, help him regulate, and he gets that sensory gratification from.
Yeah.
But there are other things. The classic stories that you hear are the hair dryers are too loud or the vacuum cleaner. What's a common sensory? Have you ever noticed? Have you had any sensory challenge with your child? Where do you want to?
Yeah. How long have we got? Yes.
Yeah. Pick the top 1 or 2.
Oh, okay. So the top one definitely has to be fabrics. With my son, clothing has been a massive sensory impact on him. So we've gone down the lines of buying him like Velcro shirts, and sensory trousers, trainers which look like shoes. We've bought all manner of different types of clothing. Now we're at the point where we know what fabrics he likes. He likes sort of like soft pajama type fabrics. He's okay with that. Anything else, I couldn't put him in like a suit and shirt and tie or anything. Just like
wouldn't
that.
Do it.
Wouldn't no.
Well, how would he react if you did put him in that, or what was the most likely outcome? Meltdown?
Yeah. So it would either be an immediate meltdown, or it would be a prolonged meltdown after the fact. So say, for example, my sister-in-law's wedding, and we dressed him up sort of smart.
Yeah.
He wanted to go home the entire time. Is that okay? We can't do that because we're here, and he's forced to be, looking smart for all these photos. Then he's having the photos taken of him, and the drive back from the event, and then when we got home,
in a meltdown,
massive meltdown.
Yeah. So it does go, but then as a parent, we're documenting, we're recording all these things. If you're thinking of sight sensitivities, is it bright lights that are causing issues, or sometimes the desire to stare at them, which can cause some retina challenges as well. So we've got to be aware of these things. Hearing, common understandings. Are you seeing your child continuously cover their ears, or listening to loud music and such? Where are certain sounds that they like to hear over and over again?
Yeah. I mean,
smells.
Alexander, here's a challenging one. So, Alexander doesn't like loud noises, but then because of the other sensory side of things, didn't like the feel of his ear defenders. So right, okay, I can't control outside noises, and he won't wear his ear defenders. So we went through a whole variety of different styles of ear defenders, and then. What we found was he was okay with headphones. So normal sort of headphones, because they're soft and padded.
Yeah.
But they don't deaden the noise very well. So we got wireless headphones and played audiobooks while we were out.
Yeah.
So he's more listening to the audiobooks of one of them, like Captain Underpants, for example, or something along the lines of that. So he's listening to that while he's out, and he's not having all this audio input.
He's focused on his value, what he finds soothing.
Exactly.
And this is also still worth documenting, because if they have these interests as well, it helps when we come to share the strategies that will support our child's needs.
Mm.
If you're doing things like the headphones already, then you can then share those strategies. I was speaking to a few parents around a challenge with smells, and and this was in a school setting, they weren't having their lunch in the lunch halls, and it was the smells of the food that were the reasons why they weren't unable to sit in that environment, the intensity that too strong for them. Um, Sometimes with toilets, what person doesn't want to go into a smelly toilet and such? So, but for a neurodivergent child, the intensity is so much higher for them, and it's a point that if you're neurotypical, and even if you were neurodiverse, because we're all unique and different, one neurodivergent person's intensity or sensitivity is going to be completely different to another neurodivergent person sensitivity intensity, because of the way our brain processes that information or receives that content through our senses. So we must acknowledge, we must document, and we must share that stuff around any of the sensitivities. I know we're going to get into now the big one, though, which I know a lot of listeners are probably interested: social, emotional, mental health. What should we be documenting and recording as parents around SEMH? Do you want to start with the social side or emotionals? I put him on the spot now. I've made him like the biggest one, and I've just dumped it on him.
Hang on, right. Both.
Yeah.
Both are equally as important. Emotion. It depends on your output. I think emotional side.
Okay. Think emotions. So your emotions of joy and anger and frustration.
Yeah.
How does your child share their emotions? Are they sharing them in what might be classed as a neurotypical way? And you might associate that with, if you identify yourself as neurotypical, as that way, or observing what other peers do, or are they sharing their emotions in perhaps a diverse way, different to peers or how you perceive them?
I think it's one of those that's going to be different for
every child.
Every individual child. If you've got a child which is expressing behaviors which can be quite violent in social situations, then obviously you need to focus on the social element first. If you've got a child with suicidal ideations, then you need to work on the emotional side first. I know that the two can be quite interlinked. We all want to see our children happy, and if they're not happy, and if they've got suicidal ideations or mental health issues as a result of
environments
and anything like that, you need to fix that first. But
you need to document it as well as a parent. If you're aware of it,
documentation is the key, because it gives you,
and it can be as just writing it down on a notepad, isn't it? You start that.
You don't have to write War and Peace on every single episode that happens. It can just be something
date, time, place, this happened.
Yeah,
because that's evidence, and that's something that we, if you want to get support for your child, we need to start with what do we know, because it's really hard when you're trying to offload it all from your brain. So if you're able to write it down, then because these things are happening with your child, and sometimes maybe it's just like sitting down with your cup of tea and just watching your child play at home and seeing how they engage. Anger, it can manifest in a lot of physical ways as well, but even joy and happiness. There are some children who are so happy and so excited, and sometimes, like with my son, he might want to go and like tickle and be very, very playful. He's very happy, but also we have to teach our son that we have to be mindful that not everybody's going to want to get tickled and such, and so appropriate contact.
It can be a tricky one to manage.
It's a tricky one because they're perfectly innocent in their mind.
I wholeheartedly agree with just sit and watch and how they interact, because not only you might find out, oh, you know what, I didn't think of this before, but what's happening there, or that specific thing, is actually a trigger for this behavior. So I can then adjust something to negate that,
which you can then share with someone else. So sensory, obviously we've touched on a little bit here. We were on social, emotional, mental health, aren't we? So we've talked about emotional health. Social side of things, it's quite linked to interactions in terms of how they interact with other people, but the social side of things is looking at your child when they engage in environments, now one of the most common ones you'd see is if, let's say, a group of children were playing with a toy and a group of children were together, and your child is independently observing those children from a distance or playing on their own, you might want to log and document that. You might want to see, when their siblings, do they like to have, their quiet space and they like to play independently? Or when they engage socially, are they trying to encourage, I suppose is the word here, for other children to follow their agenda? And how do they behave if a child doesn't follow their agenda? And these are things worth documenting. Any kind of stories you want to share on that one?
Lots.
Yeah.
So many.
I mean, I've seen so many with my son. I could go on forever.
So we would see it quite often with my boy, that he would always steer conversations to what he wants to talk about.
My son the same.
And it would always be, games that he wanted to play, and if they didn't want to play, then no, it has to be what he wanted to do, because it's that fixation on, I want to do this, nothing else, I don't want to do anything else, it's this, and I want to talk about this, I don't want to talk about anything else. So
and is it subtle or is it kind of direct? Because I feel like
very, very, very direct.
You see, I've seen the direct approach, but I've also seen the subtle approach, because sometimes I might challenge the direct approach just to try and encourage the development of my son with a variety of understanding, because he's a little bit older now, and understanding, joining in with what others children want, as well as learning how, getting them to do like. So there's a little bit of give and take there, which can be a challenge in itself, trying to
don't stop just because okay, this is how my child interacts. Don't stop, or don't not try and explain other concepts to them, and try and get them to talk about other things. It's all about encouragement and teaching them how conversations work. So a lot of conversations I have with my boy, it's very one-sided. He'll be talking at me about something he wants to talk about, but he needs to get that information off his chest. And then once he does, that's the end of the conversation. It's difficult.
And you can write, and if we're talking about documenting all of this, if you are able to, at the end of the day, write your one-page diary of your experience with your child and what you did today, and what a lovely thing to read years later. I played with my child, he behaved this way and that way. So if you can start documenting that in some form of a diary, if you need templates, you can contact the charity. Then these are habits that you can get into, that when it comes to getting that support, you've got that nice big book that you can share. And, you can do this via tables. You can do this via one-line sentences and bullet points. You can write a story, whatever you want to do.
Especially if you're in a situation where an educational setting may not see these behaviors, or we don't see it. It's like, okay, well, here's book one.
Yeah, exactly.
This is
volume one, and you can
this is November to November 3rd.
And they're not going to go through everything, but you've got the evidence. So when the challenge is less when you've got volumes of evidence. We haven't talked about actually, just quick on social, if I may. There's something I want to touch on, the subtleness. And I'm going to use the word manipulation, which many people will think of perhaps as a negative. But what that person is doing is that they are adapting to try and get that person on their agenda, and they might do it in a subtle way. And it's worth documenting how they do that. If you're watching, siblings play together and how they might navigate that might be done in a subtle way, like encouraging the other child to follow their agenda through saying, oh, if we do this, we're going to play this way. So you might see it in a strict way, in a direct way, but also it's worth documenting if you see it in a subtle way, if your child is cleverly manipulating the circumstances to their agenda, because that's a skill in itself, but also a marker perhaps of some neurodivergent tendencies that we want to document. But don't view the term manipulation in negative. What they're actually doing is they're trying to adapt the circumstance to best meet their needs.
What's your views on filming behaviors?
Okay, so filming behaviors, a lot of parents feel that they get to the point that and filming often happens when they feel that they're not being listened to. Parents will then say, well, here's a video of my child. That tends to be one of the main reasons why they feel they need to film their child. What I would say is, obviously, as a parent, if you make the choice to document your child's behavior, the best thing to do is to um, ensure that the impact of the filming doesn't create more dysregulation and increase the meltdown and psychologically upset the child. So if you are using a film device and the camera is subtly there, let's say I'm aware my child at this time every day has a meltdown. Well, I might have the camera there sitting there. And if the child behaves a certain way in that then viewers that I choose to share that footage with can see that how that just sparked from nothing. That's not always going to work for some people. Some people are going to catch the meltdown in the moment. They're going to be like, I've got to turn my phone off now and I've got to catch this. The challenge with that is that whilst you are proving that the child is having a meltdown, and many would support you, there will always be in the back of some, unfortunately, professional's mind, well, we have to take that with a certain degree because we don't know what happened before that. So if you are seeing continuous pattern behavior with your child, you are aware that these are happening, these are times. You are subtly choosing, because it's a choice, to record the child behavior for documented purposes because people aren't believing you.
Yeah.
And I can see that the why parents would take that. I would start off with written content first, if you're able to, and if you feel, it's a parental choice. I think it's a choice from parents to do it, but I think they do it because it's professionals aren't listening. And if you are making that choice, just be mindful that it doesn't impact on the child's well-being. Seeing that footage time, because what person would want to see their version of when they were aggressive or upset mum and dad? That can be quite hard for a child.
There's
Tough, isn't it?
Yeah, I never wanted to get to the point where I was videoing my child having a meltdown.
But you were left with no choice.
No, and there's one video in particular.
I think I've seen this one where you showed it to me a lot.
Yeah, and it always sets me off, and I'm already sort of welling up about it. But there's one particular video where Alexander's really, really upset, and he's there saying that he doesn't want to live anymore, and it is soul crushing. And
because you're reliving it every time I'm not saying you would watch that video continuously, but you need it to prove to someone what's going on.
I never wanted to film him having a meltdown. But the people that were supposed to be supporting him weren't, and we weren't being listened to, and it was getting dangerous. Because he absconded school, and there's a very busy main road that runs between my house and the school he was at, and anything could have happened. Thankfully it didn't, but that was 2023. That was the worst year that we experienced it. Thankfully, he's in a much better state of mind now, and that is through a lot of support from Peak. I can't say that Peak hasn't helped get us where we are. We're still not 100% of the way there.
We've got a few things to iron out.
Yeah,
we're in a better place than we were back in 2023.
Yeah, but to see the progress from where he was at in 2023 to where he's at now is night and day. It's such a change.
I mean, I remember that first phone call that you and I had, and the tears that were there. But just going back to that video, it's one of those moments that I would say to our listeners listening to that, if they've experienced anything like that before, is that these are the moments that drive us as well.
Yeah,
they are heartfelt, emotional. Oh man, I'm gonna come around and give
I'm okay.
a hug. It's like, man, I get it. Yeah. I get it. We've been there, and we need to be there for each other, because I tell you what, and that's why it's so great. Like at the community session today, when we had all these people together, and seeing the reassurance on so many parents' faces that you're not alone. Because because it's really important when you're going through those moments, you need to reach out. And I'm so glad that we had that conversation on the day. We still got things to iron out. And yeah, you'll always be emotional looking back at those tough moments, but also then reminding yourself that enough was enough. That's when I decided things would change, and I was going to. And I think that was one of those moments where things did start to move.
Yeah.
It drives you like, I have to prioritize now. I have to do. I never want to hear my child ever talk about their well-being in such a manner.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's it got to a point. It's like, hey, there's no way you can't see this anymore.
Yeah.
It's here. This is it. It is here. This is what we've been telling you. It's almost like challenging them. It's like, right, get out of saying you can't see these behaviors. There's nothing wrong. Explain this then.
Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the last category, self-care and independence. You know, obviously, yes, there's social, emotional, mental health and documenting the challenges of children having, but when it comes to their self-care and when it comes to their independence, what are the things that we want parents be recording so that we can then identify those needs and support those needs? Now, you know, sleep, nutrition, and exercise are always the top three things I look at. Child engages in those. You know, is my child sleeping enough? When you think of self-care and independence, your child, what are some of those challenges that you've noticed even from early on?
Self-care is quite a big one for me, and you know, you said about sleeping. We touched on that on the first episode. You know, how do you get your
The
child to
routines of
sleep?
sleeping, yeah. What should I be documenting in relation to sleep? Well, I would say the times it takes your child to fall asleep, for starters. I mean, because a lot of parents find that they have to be hugging their child, reading 5 stories. Some of them can't even leave the room. Some children will stay awake, no electronical devices and stuff, and just be awake for hours and hours because their brains can't switch off.
Yeah,
That is worth documenting.
It's that point where, you know, they're having that sensory input from the day, and it's like, right, now is the sort of wind down time of things. It's like, okay, right, so they're led in bread. And that's when everything starts to turn, and then they have all these questions. Then it's like, oh, I've got to talk about this, and they have to offload it. And it's like, okay, but it's 10 o'clock at night. No, I've got to get this off my chest. My children don't go to bed.
Yeah.
There's things that, you know, we've had to adapt, and we've tried a lot of strategies at night, but you
write that down. You'd if you're doing a sleep diary, you'd write that down. That becomes a document of something that you can share. You know, and it could be around food as well. You know, like, you know, the palates that our children have, the difficulties. I mean, I remember once when my son was about 3-4 years old, I had a 45-minute battle with a chicken nugget. Him having a chicken and it was just like, why is this being so difficult? I'm trying to support my child eating. And he was quite young, and he couldn't speak at the time. He had a speech delay as well, so it was even more challenging.
Massive challenge,
because he was obviously like upset, and I was like, well, I've got to get something in, and he had to have nutritional shakes and such because he was underweight, and so it can be really distressing for a parent. Once again, we need to identify early and see what are the patterns of behavior around self-care, around independence. You know, is my child putting the shoes on the wrong feet, or struggling to put their shoes on, or struggling to put clothes on, or do buttons and things like that?
Becoming overwhelmed at certain textures, and
and we're only ever going to document that if we give our children the opportunities. Because as parents, I don't know about you, Carl, but I got into a bad habit of like, well, I'm going to get them dressed and get them out the door because, you know, we're going to get school on time and such. But then I thought to myself as a parent, well, I'm not observing and seeing how my child engages and able to do those things themselves. And if I'm the one always doing it, then how am I able to document what they can and they can't do? You know, brushing their teeth. Am I brushing their teeth, or showing them how to do it as well? Our children, neurodivergent or not, I believe have capabilities if they are supported, but we need to identify, you know, and the key areas of need, I think, communication, cognition, sensory, social, emotional, self-care, and independence. These are the things that if you are on this journey, document early.
Yeah.
If that rhyme.
Say it again, just like
Yeah,
look right at the camera when you say
if
it.
you're on that journey, then document
Yeah.
early. But yeah, so that is the reason we've spent some time on that, is because that's where it all starts.
Yeah.
Now, we can use terms like, you may have heard, the graduated pathway, MyPlans, pupil passports, individual educational plans, all these different terms across the nation. Every school might be using a different template, a different format. All that is the identification of a challenge or a need that you've shared with the school are aware of, and then you're asking the school, can you support this need, monitor how they're engaging with it, and then maybe come up with some ideas and some strategies and work with the parents on how to do that. And that's what these My Plans and these initial documents are on this initial journey. What are these reasonable adjustments?
Mm.
Um, what do you remember from the first My Plan?
The now you're asking me to remember things.
Yeah,
That's not
yeah,
one of my strongest suits.
yeah.
So it was a challenge to I don't know why it was so much of a challenge for us to attain that first My Plan. But once
Well, we know why. It's work. It's extra work that everybody got to do. It's not always easy to ask professionals who are working hard to do more, but the facts are my child needs this support. So regardless of whether it's more work or not, I
Yeah.
need you to do this.
I think knowing what I know now,
Yeah.
we would have started earlier and we would have been more equipped than we were, but this was all new to us, and so we're not sure what we can do, what we can't do, what we should do. So yeah, the journal is so key, and I wish we'd done it sooner, because we knew about behaviors, but it was our word against theirs. So yeah, finally attaining that first My Plan, it's like, okay, so this is the start of where he will be supported with these needs. And then it was, okay, right, we need to review, has he achieved these? It's like, no. Okay, how do we amend these? And then it progressed on from there. But that was the start of the turnaround, where he started getting support, and obviously it progressed to a My Plan Plus.
Yeah.
And then there was still more challenges, and then EHCP.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to all
Yeah.
of that. But like, I think starting the My Plan, what we want to, listeners, is that it's an action plan of collaboration between you and the school, or you and the family support workers, or the you and professionals, that you are working with these people with you've got some identified needs, and if you've done your homework early, if you manage to share your journals and your things that you've noticed at home, these people, let's take schools for instance, they're invested in helping your child get an education, getting developing and such. So as a parent, you're doing them a favor by sharing, this is the way my child works, and this is what helps them, and this is what doesn't help them. Useful information, so you can get the best out of my child, and that my child can enjoy school and such. And sometimes that might be a challenge to get those plans, and you can contact us, or you can um, present that evidence in an understanding way, in an objective way of, we're all working towards the goal of doing what's best for the child. But My Plan itself is all about reasonable adjustments, about things that the school can manage within its resources. And sometimes, like you said, it does escalate to what they call the My Plan Plus, or across the graduated pathways and such, and different counties and across the nation will use different formats and templates. But essentially, you can call it Action Plan 1, which is reasonable adjustments the school can manage within their resources, to Action Plan 2, if you want to call it that, which is the identified needs haven't made the level of progress that they should have made, and we now need to look at external input from advisory teaching services, specialist services, people who can help support that need, because we as a school haven't been able to crack it. We haven't been able to support that person. And then that's why I think they've got the different foundations, and sometimes that might need to be funded.
Mm.
And sometimes um, schools, it's a bit of a up and down, because obviously there is that notional funding that they claim the £6,000 per child to support SEND needs. Some schools struggle to locate that and have that. The local authorities say, well, we naturally give you that to support the child. But there is that conversation around this £6,000 of funding per child. Um, However, if I would say if a school didn't have the resources, then they would escalate up to an EHC assessment, an EHCP request.
Mm.
But going back to the My Plans and the My Plan Pluses, if you're listening and you're trying to understand it, it's an action plan of collaboration between you and the professionals. And the good news is, if you've done your research first, you can share that input, so you can very much lead and direct that. Don't wait for professionals to share their input. You know your child best.
Mm. It's always worth instigating that conversation with the school, if they're supportive or if they're not supportive. You need to have that conversation. You need to have the difficult conversation if it's a difficult one, or have a collaborative conversation with them. It's like, look, my son or daughter's struggling in this aspect. This is what we're seeing. Look, we've got the journal here. We're seeing X, Y, and Z. How can we work together to help support that need? And that's where it starts. Instead of waiting for them to pick up on this need, or waiting for a parents' evening months down the line, and then it gets mentioned and you go, oh, thank God someone else has seen it. Be proactive about it.
It's tough as a parent if you're burned out as well. It's
oh my God, yeah. The burnout is real.
The burnout is real, and it's really tricky. But this is why organizations like ours exist, because we're that hand on your shoulder. You don't have to do it all alone. I mean, when I first did it, I was like, where's that? Literally sitting behind the poster.
Yeah.
But
and you are.
Yeah, I know that guy. But yeah, you can enlist tools, and you can enlist other organizations. Sendiast is another organization.
Mm-hmm.
Some organizations people connect with better than others. You might have a really good Senko in your school that will support you. You might have a good caseworker if you're requesting an EHC assessment. But let's talk about it. Why would my child be entitled to an EHCP? How does it progress to that level of need? What is an EHCP, and especially with the reforms I know we haven't touched on yet. We'll do that after the break, maybe.
Yeah.
But an EHCP, essentially an educational healthcare assessment. Before we even get into the plan, let's talk about the assessment. You are requesting essentially the local authority to support your school or your child's setting with more resources, because essentially reasonable adjustments, additional professionals' recommendations, speech and language therapists or occupational therapists that have been involved, all of this input that's come in from these professionals has still not improved the circumstances and the development of your child. So you need more. Now, in order to do that, we need to evidence to the local authority, what have we done already? Because the LA are going to say, well, we can't give more money and more resources to your child until we know what's been done. So they like to see copies of the MyPlan, copies of reports and such. As a parent, I would say, keep those documents, keep those letters and such. And make sure in those action plans, in those My Plans, any OT advice, SALT advice, independent professionals peak, if we suggested a good idea or strategy, that should be embedded in the plan, because the local authorities like to see where those strategies came from and who provided them, to prove that you've had other people trying to support your child before they're able to allocate resources, because they're trying to manage their resources. Now, if you don't know what you're doing with an EHC, there's a lot of content online. If you need to do a consultation with us, we can sit down and do a 1-hour consultation with you. We could probably spend an entire podcast talking about EHCPs, which we don't have time to do for now.
No, I mean, think of the meeting, we had just for one section.
Yeah.
We worked on one section of the working document, and it took us about an hour and a half.
Exactly.
And that was working off one report. And we've got other reports to work from. So it's,
What I would say is, if you think that your child needs to progress, because sometimes I hear parents request for an EHC assessment, is What do you think? And you need to be able to answer this question, parents. So have your answer written down. Take some time to think about it. What is it that you think that this document will do to improve the circumstance for your child? What resources do you think that they need? And if you don't know, can have a consultation with us. We can have a conversation. We can sit down with the school and look at what's been doing well or not. But if you're going through that EHC assessment, you don't have to do it alone. And you need to be able to answer the question, what are you hoping for with these additional resources? Most might say, I want my child to be happier. I want my child to be able to go to school. Okay. I want my child to be able to get an education and such. So
Yeah.
these are all valid things to say, but also add on to it, what have they tried that hasn't worked already, and because then that will increase the likelihood of you getting that assessment, and then hopefully eventually that plan. And then what does that do? Well, during an assessment you get access to an educational psychologist from the local authority. Being an educational psychologist, they can look at your child in greater depth. They can then document and identify targets that are more specific, hopefully, for that child if you've got a good EP.
Yeah.
I've seen a variety of EP reports. Good targets, but also good provisions. But because it comes from the local authority, these could be funded provisions that then, if the local authority agree, you get a plan. And then we won't have time to go into
They've got to be
plans and such.
They need to be achievable.
They need to be achievable targets.
There's no point, say there's a child with emotional-based school avoidance. There's no point in putting a target of 100% attendance, because it's never going to happen.
No.
But you can set, that you want an increase in attendance, and then set out the provisions which may help achieve that. It may not work, but they've got to be reasonable.
100%, mate, 100%. And what I would say is that any listeners today, if you want to learn more about EHCPs, we could do a whole podcast on EHCPs, and we could talk about the different sections in the plan. Drop us comments to this podcast, and we will do a separate section on the educational healthcare plans. But I know that we're going to be taking a break in a minute. So, yeah, in summary, from what we've shared with you guys on the journey, like Carl was saying, it's about early recognizing, early documentation from your parents' perspective, sharing that with professionals, working with those MyPlans, those action plans, and then looking at who's been involved, keeping those records up to the point of where we might need local authority engagements and EHCPs and such.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to learn more about that, then drop us comments and we'll do more expansions on those sessions.
Yeah.
On those sections.
As for now, we are going to take a break, and we will be back shortly.
Okay.
And we're back!
Hey! It's amazing what a cup of tea can do.
Oh my god, yes. I was dying of thirst over here. So, Mr. Marco, what we're going to do now is we're going to go to viewer questions.
I love a question, Carl.
I love a good answer. I don't know if I can promise to give you any good answers. Right, so the first question that we've got is from Tracy. And it is, why is it that EHCP process has to be so long-winded and difficult?
Why is it that it has to be so long-winded and difficult? Why can't these things be simple? Wouldn't that, Tracy? I hear you, and shout out to you on what you must be going through to get your child that support. The reality of EHCPs or EHC assessments, as you would have heard a minute ago, is because they are evidence-based, and because when we apply for these things, are we first applying with them with the greatest strength and the greatest evidence? And even if we are, it might still get rejected. Local authorities will turn around and say that they are trying to manage resources as effectively as possible, but they will never publicly state that they are going to reject on that basis. They reject on the basis of whatever you get in the letter. It is a process that can take quite a long period of time, and I know we're going to get to discuss about the white paper brief towards the end of this. Their hope is that they are going to stretch things out and get these things done quicker. The best advice I could give you, Tracy, is that if it is taking longer than you think it should, is to use a tool, a resource like ourselves, and contact Peak to see if we could speed that process up for you by challenging anyone who is blocking the development of that process for you. And we could do that for a variety of different ways. We could support your application if you're writing it. We could support it in mediation if it's been refused. We could support the appeal and such. But it's long-winded as you describe, and I'm assuming it is because it's taking too much time due to the fact that they want to see professional reports of what's been done, who's done what, how it's been done, how progress has been recorded. And if certain professionals aren't documenting and recording that as best as they should, that's sometimes the delays. Another delay, like Carl and I were talking about, is sometimes the challenges of people just believing parents on what they're saying, which is so important. That's something that Carl and I were talking about earlier, and we want to see more of that. We want to see people trusting parents' perspectives because it's valid.
Yeah, it's a very evidence-based system that we have already, and it requires, professional. I don't want to say intervention, but observations. That's the word. I thought I've remembered a word. Observations. So things like OT, ed psych, the advisory
teaching. Yeah.
That's the word. Yeah. See, word's a word in this week.
Which not every county has. Not every county has an advisory teaching service.
But it goes back to what you were saying earlier on about the journal as well, to even sort of get the process started of being able to see an OT and ed psych and everything like that. It starts back with that journal. It's like, hang on, I've noticed these things wrong, not necessarily wrong, these difficulties, these challenges. Can we get some support with this and get the ball rolling?
Start your diagnosis journey early as well. I mean, it's going to take 3 years anyway, so start sharing that journal with those medical practitioners or those MyPlans and such, because if you get those action plans and those documents early, you're going to be potentially waiting up to 3 years for a chest diagnosis, unless you've chosen to go private. So yeah, starting early will hopefully less.
Yeah, and it is a fluid process, so it does change even when you have an EHCP. It doesn't just stop there, that's not the goal of getting an EHCP. It progresses from there. It's like, okay, because the needs change. It's like things work, things don't work, and then you need to evaluate on either your annual review, or you request an interim review or an emergency review to change things about it which aren't working. And it's a good way to monitor it. So
yep, you're signing up for a long journey. And fundamentally as well, when you're trying to get resources from other organizations that are probably limited as it is already, that does come with its challenges. But Carl, who can Tracy call if she needs support through this process? Who are you going to call?
Hang on. There's a charity. It's right on the tip of my tongue.
I feel like it's staring at me right in the face.
Yeah. It's that one there. Peak.
Yeah, Tracy, get in touch with us. Yeah.
And definitely get in touch. Right. On to question number 2.
A game show.
We have got a lot of questions, and I apologise that we're not going to be able to get through all of them. But any that we don't get through today, we'll add to future episodes.
Or you can email to the charity as well.
Email the charity, or email myself, media.
Put it in the comments of the podcast as well.
Definitely,
We'll
all
answer
the
it
comments.
online.
Just send it all,
because it'll
send
share
everything.
if you put it on the comments, you're sharing that question that other people might want to answer too as well. So by you sharing that question on the comments, you're helping other people.
Question from we've got: if the LA agreed to do a needs assessment and decides to issue an EHCP, is it better to have a provision in mind? I'm not sure mainstream is right for my daughter, but I don't know what the alternatives are. Is it my responsibility to think about this?
Okay, good question. Now let's talk about what provision means first of all. Some might view provision as the setting, and so let's separate setting and provision. So settings within an EHCP are in section I, and if you're thinking of it as a setting, or you're thinking of provision as a setting, you're thinking of the school. Is a mainstream suitable or is a specialist setting suitable, or is education other than at school something that you want to consider? So you're looking at the type of provision, and that's based on what you think your child is able to engage with, and also they're giving them their best opportunity, their best developmental opportunity. If you think that's mainstream, well then okay, we can look at the support within the mainstream. If you think that's a specialist school because environments are more adaptive to children with higher levels of needs, that's fine. And if you're thinking education other than school, that's something that you can look at. And that leads us into conversations around alternative provisions. Now, the other context of that question might be provisions based within what is section F of an EHCP, where when you have your targets, which are in section E, section E sets out the outline of the targets. Section F sets out how they're going to achieve success within those targets. Are there reasonable adjustments? Are there funded provisions? And who's going to run those? Now, schools do not have to be solely responsible if it's your child's in a setting in a mainstream school, for instance. And even I've worked with specialist schools who haven't had to solely be responsible for funding those provisions. There are alternative provisions that might even be approved by the local authority. So we have catalogues in Gloucestershire and other providers that you can look into, that perhaps a target that they're trying to achieve has a lot of provision recommendations, but the teachers aren't trained in how to deliver that. And you can look at an alternative provider to come in and support that as well. So in relation to the provisional recommendations, there are things that you can do. You can use alternative provisions to support those EHCP plans via the section F area, or if we're talking about context in relation to the actual setting, you have the right to give a parental preference on what you think is best. And if you'd like to learn more about that and you need some more support, then please do get in contact with us. I will also add on the point of, in terms of our parental responsibility. Well, yes, I mean, we brought our children into this world. We want what's best for them. Use that parental preference. Use that power that you have as their strongest advocate, and spend a little time, if you can, looking at schools, websites, researching what you think might be a good setting. Go to open days, visit special schools. And if you go in early, start learning about these things early. I mean, I went to, looked at special schools years before my son went to one, because I wanted to learn. And initially I was like, no, right time. He was doing well in mainstream with support. It's only later that he progressed into a specialist setting. So knowledge is power, and looking early. So yeah, take ownership and responsibility. And if you need support, we can help. 2 questions in. How are we doing?
Yeah. You know what? I think what we're starting to run out of time a little bit. One big subject, which is, you know, in all the headlines this week, the white paper.
We promised we'd discuss that, didn't we?
We did, yes. And you know what? We're not going to. You'll have to find out next. No.
Talk about a cliffhanger.
Yeah, we've hooked them now. No. The white paper, Mr. Marco. What are your thoughts and views about the proposal of this white paper, the educational reform?
What the title, "Thrive, Achieving Children and Thrive for Thriving Children"? Yes, okay. Now, if you're interested, on our social media, we did a video the night before the white paper. So the white paper, as we know, was released on Monday, the 21st or 22nd. It was on Monday.
Monday. Yeah.
On Monday. Now, before we even get into anything to do with the white paper, many people contacted the charity and were quite concerned about this term of reform and what it would symbolize, and would this automatically be advocated. And I think it would have been good if the government had done more to reassure that these are what they are saying as a plan. The white paper itself and these documentations, is this what that the current government are proposing could help improve the system, their vision, their outline of how they would achieve these things. However, I want to stress that this is not becoming mandatory tomorrow. This is, at this stage, a documentation, a plan, a suggestion of how they could improve. It hasn't been run through Parliament. No laws have been changed since the publishing of that document. This is now a time where we are going to review what the government has presented, and that's going to go through a consultation process with other professional services so they can share input on the realities and the logistics of trying to achieve this. So I will say to everyone, first of all, if you are going to spend the weekend reviewing the white paper, if you've already had a look at, if you've gone on online seminars learning about the white paper, look at it from a point of view that this is just what the government feel is their best suggestion at this time with the level of knowledge that they've accumulated, but it is not by any means going to be actioned today or tomorrow. Your child's entitlements, your child's rights, everything will be maintained. Okay, so please take the time to review it. Now, in relation to what's actually inside of it, there's a lot of content, and even myself, still going through a lot of it. Let's start with the vision and the goal and what the white paper is indicating, which, it's talking about, they've got the word empowered in there as well. Where they got that one from,
they've obviously been following you,
Well, very honored if that was the case, but they are talking about helping children thrive and achieve and become successful people in society. So fundamentally, whatever's written within those reforms, if we are holding the government accountable to their vision and doing what's best for children and helping them become empowered individuals, then regardless of whatever changes and whatever new criteria comes into place, we still have that goal that we can hold the government accountable to, we can hold local authorities accountable to. So in terms of the level of support with Peak and with any other agencies that you may be working with as well, you've got that reassurance that doing what's best for the child still takes precedent. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of hope and a little less anxiety.
Yeah.
In terms of,
I've seen a lot of responses to it. It's very much up in the air, and
I could talk a lot of doom and gloom, and I've seen a lot of stuff that's come out.
Yeah,
I think let's be objective about the whole thing.
Yeah, there's implications of it that it could be potentially scary because, there's talk of we need to, there'll be removing children's EHCPs at year 6, and there's a lot of
let's talk about
which,
that point. Okay, the concern of removing of EHCPs. Now, fundamentally, if your child has a legal document of support provisions, it can't just be as simply as taken away from them and stopped. What they're going to try and transition and do, and I said this on a BBC interview long before the reforms came out, is I had a feeling that the government were going to use a new tiering system, which evidence was pointing towards that. And I think that's where in a nutshell, that's where they're trying to do. They're trying to look at the tiering system and the criteria system, because in their perspective, they're probably trying to allocate resources more effectively. But we will not allow the government at all to send support that is needed for children.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the transitions of plans, I think it's really important that local authorities have an understanding that they're not turning around to parents and saying, oh, because your child is now year 6, we now have to stop this and do this new thing. What you should be saying to parents is, here's the new content and here's how it's going to help your child better than the previous plans. Yeah. Or we need to get these reports in early so that we can transition them to the new plan, because a child's needs don't stop from secondary school. If anything, they start. Most children are masking up until year 6. So I know there's a lot of fear mongering out there, and there's a lot of in terms of the budget conversations about the 1.3 million here and all these financial numbers that are being thrown around. And yes, we're talking about the 6,500 teachers that they're looking to employ, especially trained teachers. We're still gonna have to train. We're still gonna have to educate. We could go on and on and on about the practicalities and the logistics of trying to do this.
Yeah, you could overanalyze it and then, go down to the very sort of details of, how much is it going to cost to actually train the 6,500 people? And I think,
how long is that going to take?
Yeah, it's something ridiculous like 1.4 or 1.6 billion just to train them up anyway.
Where are you going to get the new Ed Sykes from? We could have conversations like this continuously, but the reality is, let's look at this as, okay, the government gave it their best shot. It's by no means perfect, and I think they know that as well. what we want to reassure listeners here today to this podcast is that regardless of what that white paper says, and regardless of any kind of criteria changes, the goal remains the same, that your child is entitled to the support that they need to help their development, to help them succeed in and into becoming functioning, successful adults in society. And our organization is not going to stop regardless of any reforms. We are going to navigate and surf the waters of any of these reforms. And we're going to keep getting successful results because we've been doing that nonstop and we'll keep doing that. So white paper or no white paper, Carl, at the end of the day, whatever it says, and if you'd like any specific questions around, please do email us. It's not going to stop the work that we're doing. We're still going to achieve success. What it might even help us do is now, especially during this consultation process, allow us the opportunity to be in the room, because Peak has had conversations with us. They've asked us questions and data. It gives us the opportunity to share, well, listen, this is what's going on the front lines. And at least we can share our voice along with all the, make sure that this consultation process is successful. But please take away, folks, that nothing is changing tomorrow. We're in a process of consultation, and it's not going to be actioned. Laws aren't going to change tomorrow. Child's rights and entitlements will still maintain. Take a breath on that. Yeah, sorry.
Tell you what, I'll just go and have another cup of tea after this one and just let you keep going. It is one of those things, though, you are so passionate about that you can just keep going and 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 going. And it's really, really, really impressive to see. As for Peak, what's coming up? What's coming up? Okay.
Yeah,
what's coming up for Peak? What's Peak going to be doing?
We got another community sports session on March 27th in Hucklecote in Gloucestershire. So please do come along to that. What are we doing? Oh, Sunday, I'm off to London, Carl. Sunday, BBC London has invited us up to talk about the charity and share.
They didn't want me to go.
Well, you can come with me. My daughter said she wanted to come in the car. I'm like, we're going to drive like 4
gonna
hours.
walk it?
No, we've been there. We've done that. But yeah, so Sunday we've got that. We're also going to be doing, so we're doing some stuff in London to talk about the charity and share more support over the radio. And even BBC Gloucestershire has asked us to do a segment. I think it's going to be on the second or third week of that. So there's going to be a lot of Peak on the media, so that we can get that message of support out there more. Events wise, we are looking at preparing some respite programs. We're well into planning of Peak Day 2. So if you'd like to support the charity, donate a prize or volunteer or sponsor the event, that's something that's really worthwhile. I recorded the segments for Parachute for Peak and Peaks for Peak 2, so we're going to be releasing those next week.
Yeah. Do we need to remind everyone of the goal for Peaks? Parachute for Peak.
What was it like? If we raise, was it 10 grand? Or...
20
now.
I fear as though I've set the bar too low.
Please, let's get the number high. So was it 20 or 10?
No, it was 25.
Okay, right? So we need to hit 25. So Carl will jump out the airplane with me.
Yeah, if we hit £25,000, I will jump out of a plane. You
can hear the anxiety and the apprehension.
God. Yeah, it's like I really want Peak.
I really want us to raise 25 grand. Yeah,
I want you to raise much more of that. Yeah. At the same time, I don't, because I dislike heights, and I really don't want to jump out.
If it was 24,999.99,
yeah, I'll be happy.
I'm putting in the penny.
I'm taking the penny away. I'll steal from a charity. No,
yeah, he won't do that. He's joking.
I would not.
Luckily, we're recording this podcast, so you can see it.
Yeah, I mean, I will. There's days where it like jumps in my mind. It's like, yeah, I could do that, and I would love to do that, and I want to do that for the charity. If it raises 25 grand, yes, happy to do it. At the same time, it's like figure. There will be bodily fluids coming out of me, and I will pass out, and hopefully wake up safe on the ground. Yeah.
But yeah, we got a lot of upcoming events going on. We are going to be approaching the Easter period as well, so please do keep a lookout on our social medias. We've got some work experience We've got the younger generation coming to join Peak as well, which is going to be a really exciting time for us, getting that younger generation involved with us. And just keep a lookout on our social medias, because we're constantly doing posts of events and locations and different places we're going. But fundamentally, we're here for you throughout your journey, which is how we started this podcast, isn't it? It's the journey, and you're not alone on the journey. Parenting autistic kids, our neurodivergent support service is going to be there with you.
Yeah, so I will be putting in the description, like all the links to the website, and what I will also do, I'll put in the description the link to the alternatives provision catalogue for Gloucester, just in answer to one of our questions here. And we can put in, and if we didn't get your questions, what we can do is we can send the answers to your questions within the comments of the podcast as well. So please look out for those in the comments section, and we'll get those answers out as well for any questions we weren't able to answer. But it's been great doing this. This has been absolutely fantastic. We've now got cameras. Maybe the format as how I've laid things out on there isn't great yet, but progress is progress. So
a second podcast, and we're already recording, so this is good.
Yes,
we're
onwards and upwards.
We're going to be moving to live at some point, but this has been great actually, and
I've had a lot of fun. Have you had a lot of fun?
I've had a great bit of fun with the slide, but thank you. Thank you, Carl, for this great podcast.
No worries. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is the Peak Podcast. Come tell your story. Join the adventure. Find